Hey. Hey you. If you're going to vape, get a room. Nah, I'm just sick and tired of staying in my room, and this Metro has some cool arcade cabinets. I wish I could put one of these in my room, but that's not happening.
You know, stealing is always an option.
Uh-huh.
Oh hey, name's Ceto.
Hey, I like your style. Would you like to play some games with me?
Sure, mate. Not like I have anything bad to do.
Okay, let's begin. By the way, before we start, I do have a question for you, if you would like to answer it. The question is... Watch this! What is your favorite thing about living in this world? It could be a hobby, it could be an interest, it could be an aspect of existence. It's whatever. For me personally, it's the human ability to learn about all the amazing things that life has to offer. When I was a little kid, I spent a lot of time learning about creatures. Just, you know, basic biology stuff. I also spent time learning about mythology and space via books, documentaries, and audio files, because I did not get a phone until I was 16 years old. And that's not even including all the obsessions that I used to have and still have to this day. Later in life, I got into history and philosophy. Originally, I thought those topics were boring, but that was because I wasn't mature enough. Now they're my favorite subjects. I am a very passionate person about my interests, and I love learning about them. Just makes me appreciate them even more. You could say that I'm kind of a nerd, except I don't wear glasses or have bad fashion sense. My voice does suck though, I can't dodge that stereotype. There are lots of people that have a similar mindset to me, but you don't really see or hear from those people in public nowadays, do you? Everywhere I go, and have gone, there is literally nobody who seems to be knowledgeable or caring on the same level as I am. It's hard to explain, but from my perspective, most people who watch movies, play games, chase trends, and consume art and content do not do it because they are interested or passionate about it. They do it because either everyone else is doing it or they're bored, and the enjoyment from doing it is short-lived and not abundant, regardless of the quality. It's all just surface-level interest stuff, no real thought behind it, not behind liking or disliking a thing. It's just casual and nonchalant as hell. People seem to hate depth and complexity, or at the very least, just a plain feeling of uncomfortableness. It's no different online than it is in real life. There have been many instances where I tried to talk to and have a conversation with somebody, and they literally have no interests or hobbies or anything that they genuinely enjoy whatsoever. It's insane to me. I know I'm speaking very broadly right now, but there is a real chance that you either fit this description or you know someone who does. The way I see it, the nerds, the creatives, the people who are genuinely passionate about things in the world are in hiding and not being public about what they enjoy. And while that might sound insignificant to you or me, there have been severe social consequences in the world because of this. And in this video, I'm going to explain how it happened and, more importantly, how we can reverse it.
I say the future is ours if you can count.
I'm really sorry if this is your first video that you see from my channel. I like to think of every video I make as an expansion, continuation, or revision of the last one, and the same applies here. In my YouTube video essay, I brought up anti-intellectualism as the primary cause of YouTube's problems, but I did not do a very good job explaining why I thought this. Explaining why anti-intellectualism is important to the social ecosystem that we live in today is like trying to explain Gamergate and why it is so important to the political landscape that we are in right now. However, I do have an easier time than explaining Gamergate, don't get it twisted. Anti-intellectualism can easily be described as a mistrust and/or hostility towards intellectualism and/or intellectuals. To simplify, it is an ideology based around the hatred and distrust of nerds, people smarter than you. It is commonly expressed as a deprecation of education and philosophy, and the dismissal of art, literature, history, and science as impractical, politically motivated, and even contemptible human pursuits. To simplify, they are against all the forms of human innovation and art that make life worth living in the modern era. In case it was not obvious, these people are not smart guys. They are ignorant of how much humanity has evolved in beneficial ways, and how much they have benefited themselves. And that's because their ideology is not driven by logic or observation, but rather a fear of what they do not understand. You can find these people in places of poverty with barely any education, but you can also find them in more upper class areas, because the fear of the unknown is a psychological fear that we all have, but most of us can get over it because we have the ability to learn about the world that we live in. That being said, someone can get a good education and still become an anti-intellectual, and the reason why is not simple at all. Like I said in my last major video essay, life is complex, and the world around us is constantly changing in ways we barely understand, and in most cases, ways that would disgust our younger selves. Most anti-intellectuals do not believe in knowledge as an ever-evolving, ever-expanding phenomenon, just a static collection of facts that for the most part are useless. In contrast, they believe in knowledge, and very suggestive knowledge at that, that makes them feel strong and pragmatic. They care about feelings more than facts, and they see strength and independence as a way of validating those feelings of superiority over the so-called experts, regardless of how flawed or outdated their worldviews really are. Anti-intellectuals will present themselves to be perceived as champions of the common folk, populists against political and academic elitism, because apparently getting a decent education makes you rich and therefore bad. You may not recognize it, but we are living in a world influenced by this ideology, and that influence has only grown over the years. Political parties, corporations, social media and mainstream media networks, religious institutions, and opportunistic grifters all benefit from anti-intellectualism in some way, shape, or form, using it as a tool to manipulate the masses to obtain money and power. However, that manipulation comes with the mental consent of those being manipulated. What they do is they validate their fears of the unknown and don't give them a reason to change for the better. The people who subscribe to the anti-intellectual mindset are people who did not grow up with the internet strictly, or an education that was good and/or critical of the way of life that we have today, and they have no desire to change their mindset on the world, despite the world changing around them. Like I said, life is complex, and for many people, it's easier to believe that life is simple and unchanging, and anyone who challenges that belief is a threat to be shunned and removed from society. It's just another coping mechanism for life's complexity.
I mean, I have to say, living like this, just staying in your box, what a meaningless way to live.
And that would be fine if these anti-intellectuals didn't have such genuine influence in the world, but they do. A lot of people blame the COVID-19 pandemic for this, but looking back, it was always there. And while the internet did give a voice to the nerds, it also gave a voice to anti-intellectualism and the grifters who profit from it. By keeping a majority of society in a perpetual state of ignorance, while validating their fears and hostility of the modern era, it allows them to keep that power, because it's all about feelings, not facts. They get away with it, because the voices of reason have either been socially suppressed, or have left to find better places to live, while everybody else under this seductive spell slowly get worser living standards. And I know worser is not a word. This doesn't count as anti-intellectualism. This is just me yapping.
Yo, so, cringe culture, what is it? Come on. If you're on the internet, you know what cringe culture is, but I'm going to explain it anyway for funsies. So cringe culture is typically when someone gets ridiculed for something that they enjoy that's, harmless, not lolicon. Fucking lolicon. However, who's also often victims of cringe culture? Smart people, okay? Just people who give a shit about themselves, other people. Turns out people in cringe culture tend to not take lightly to people questioning their ideals, and so the smart people are often cast out.
It is worth mentioning that cringe culture and anti-intellectualism are not the same thing, nor are these cultural phenomenons new. They have just become more interlinked with each other, and this did not happen overnight. It happened over time. To explain how this happened, I need to show you guys something. But first, I want to beat Ceto's high score. I got a picture for you to see. It's a picture of a bully shoving a nerd into a locker. You might not know where this particular picture came from. I got it from stock image, but who cares? You definitely recognize the imagery though. It's become a trope in most Western media with a school setting, and there are various different ways this bullying trope has been shown, but the consistency is always the same. The small, dorky nerd outclassed by the strong, attractive jock on a social and physical level. This is what anti-intellectual propaganda looks like. You might not recognize it consciously, but your brain does. In order to survive, strength must be just as, if not more important than intelligence. Also, the nerd stereotype is made out to be as weak and unlikable as possible, and nobody wants to be like that. Like hell, I don't want to be like that. That's how effective this stuff is. There are many other examples of this showcased in media and culture, and it has been going on for generations. I bet you could think of an example from your childhood that fits this archetype. What I'm trying to say is that this intellectual discrimination was a generational part of our culture, and it climaxed with the rise of the internet. That did not make the culture of bullying go away. Rather, it changed over time to fit the online environment. We now go after interests and not individuals, and we have words to describe the pathetic nature of said interests and the praising of others, like cringe and base. The words have been changing over time, and they do not matter. What matters is what they represent. It is a form of social conformity, defining the good and acceptable from the bad and corny. If you were one of the people who participated in this culture of bullying nerds and intellectuals just because their interests didn't align with yours, I just want to say, you are a loser. You are making the world a worse place to live because of your own insecurities, and I have no respect for you. Kill yourself, or grow the f*** up. It's your decision.
You're gonna put down other people for their ideas, like for absolutely no reason. Damn, at that point just jump.
I imagine you would not want to be treated the exact same way you are treating others. The reason why this works and is so effective in the modern age is because we as humans are dominantly social creatures, and the thought of being rejected from a group or a community is something that hurts us deeply. And for many people, it's easier to compromise our identities to fit in, rather than become isolated, even if it means giving up or hiding what we love about life in the first place, because it would make us look weak or pathetic in the public eye, while everyone else who is content with living in ignorance will gradually have their living standards decrease due to their leadership and their churches and their public speakers who they have platformed, using them for money and power. And all of that is fueled by their narrow-minded biases of what life is and what it should always be. At this point, you're probably wondering, Distic, when are you going to talk about cringe culture in detail? I mean, you put it in the title after all. The thing is, I already have. Cringe culture is a byproduct of anti-intellectualism and social conformity, not the other way around. If you look up cringe culture on Wikipedia, for example, you can find a bunch of definitions and examples of interests and communities that have been labeled as cringe. However, this is a very closed off and isolated way of looking at all of it, because the social intellectual discrimination that we know today as cringe culture goes so far back in human history. It goes as far back as classical antiquity, before the internet was even a conceptualization. And I decided I'm gonna break this down via the basic fundamentals, instead of using any dated examples, because they're all dated. The biggest mistake you can make when learning and or discussing topics like cringe culture, or just any ideology or cultural phenomenon in general, is the assumption that these things are not constantly changing in this constantly changing world of ours. Culture and ideology can change within the span of just a few generations, and these ideologies always have the possibility to align with the beliefs and goals of another, or just whatever people want to believe at the time. And that is why I firmly believe that cringe culture is not dead, and might never die. Sure, the cringe culture of the 2010s might be dead, but it will come back in a completely different form, and it might already be here, and we don't even realize it because we are the ones participating in it. The truth is, we are so distracted by symptoms of this sickness to actually stop the sickness itself. And if you think that's BS, tell me, viewer, would you have clicked on this video if I did not bring up cringe culture, at least in some way, shape, or form? Something for you to think about. If we want to permanently kill cringe culture, we have to go after the ideologies and cultural movements that allow things like cringe culture to manifest, such as anti-intellectualism, traditionalism, and reactionary thought, just to name a few. I think education reform is the best way to do this, but it would be easier said than done. It would take at least 2 generations getting into power with a focused and consistent effort on normalizing public intellectual culture in society, and there is going to be a lot of pushback from both believers and benefactors of anti-intellectualism. If I am being completely honest with all of you, I do not even know if this is possible. If this video was made a few years earlier, I might have been more optimistic, but considering how things have changed in the last few years after COVID, it looks and feels pretty hopeless. Like people have forgotten that knowledge is something that we should not take for granted, or dismiss because it doesn't align with what we believe in the moment. Knowledge is a powerful thing, worth more than any resource on this earth. I would go as far as to say that knowledge is one of the purest forms of love, a love that takes off the mask of anti-intellectualism and allows us to see the world in ways that we never could before, as well as making us better people in the long run through exploration, learning, skepticism, and acceptance. I mean, sure, it can be terrifying at times, but it can also be beautiful in ways that I just cannot describe with words. It is one of the best parts about being a human being, and I do not want anybody, for any reason, to take that away from me. And if you are like me, you would probably say the same thing. This video does not have a happy or satisfying conclusion, but it does have a little bit of hope that whoever is watching this in the near future lives in a world where they may get bullied for what they like, but they will never have to worry about their education being defunded or their internet access being restricted, because that is what really matters. Are you a nerd? If not, that's okay, but I think they are just the coolest people ever. Anyways, Ceto, do you want to play Streets of Rage?
You know what? Why not?
I knew you would say that. Anyways, thanks for watching and hanging out with us.